Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Waypoint. Today we are playing Star Wars Battlefront 2, which you may think, oh, we've done that on the Weekly Waypoint before, but you would be wrong because instead we have played Star Wars Battlefront 2. Completely different game. Now this is obviously the original 2005 Star Wars Battlefront 2, which I didn't actually play all that much of back in the day. I don't know if I even owned it until probably 2013. Actually, I can check this. I got this game in 2014 and I've got 6 hours played, so this is not actually a nostalgic childhood game for me. I've never actually played this game's campaign or Galactic Conquest or anything like that, and I do actually mean to someday, but I have far more experience with the modern Star Wars Battlefront 2, which is also a game I've been playing lately and enjoy very much, and may feature on next week's episode of A Weekly Waypoint if I'm still feeling it. But yeah, this original is fun. It's interesting to see how similar it is to the more modern Battlefront 2, considering how much Battlefront 2 takes from the Battlefield series in terms of game design. This game also appears to do that. You are also on these massive maps for the time, with a massive player count for the time, or bot count, I guess, attacking various objectives and trying to hold them. You're depleting a resource count of respawns with every kill. You're able to select more impressive hero characters, such as shock troopers, and then frickin' Darth Vader or whatever, based on how well you're doing in the game. It really has stayed quite true to formula over the years. But yeah, while I might not have a lot of experience with Battlefront 2 2005 edition, I should mention as well, this is the original Battlefront 2, not that really badly remastered version that Aspyr did, which is a shame because I would like to have a good remaster of this game to play on online servers and stuff. But I didn't actually even look for a way to play online servers in this original version of the game because I wanted to play against bots in this particular instance. That's right, I'm playing against bots on purpose. Younger gamers may gasp with shock and horror, but this is what we did back in the day. Let me explain. My first kind of first-person shooter game, I guess, was Unreal Tournament for the PS2. Unreal Tournament for the PS2 didn't come with netplay, I don't think. It's not on the box art anyway, but if it did, I never had netplay. That game is very much intended to be fought against bots, and when I then got the game on PC, I actually preferred to play against bots because anyone who had been playing Unreal Tournament on PC by that point had been playing it for at least a decade non-stop, and the skill ceiling was kind of high. This is way before the days of skill-based matchmaking or any of that nonsense as well. This is just you select a server and hope it's not populated by 1,000-hour chads. And with a game like Unreal Tournament 1999, all that's left of a super dedicated 1,000-hour chads. But I don't just play against bots because it's easier, although it is undeniable that part of the appeal of playing a bot match is your ability to just slaughter them with wanton violence. Now, it's just quite zen in a weird way, even though I guess it's an action-based game. It's quite a violent thing to do on the surface. It's quite zen to just load up a bot match and turn your brain off because to some extent your brain understands the parameters within these bots are going to behave. You don't have to turn your brain on, you don't have to sweat at any point. I would quite often just... I mean, I've sunk tens of hours into Unreal Tournament 1999 with the highest difficulty bots on Instagib mode, just running around, killing each other, winning most matches. Fun fact, I actually believe that game is more difficult against those bots on non-Instagib modes, which sounds weirdly counterintuitive given that Instagib mode is a one-shot, one-kill mode, but hey, that's the way the cookie crumbles. I guess, you just have to use more skill with weapons that don't kill instantly. But yeah, no, this is a favourite pastime of mine, and it's one I've not engaged in for quite a while. And I actually think that games like Battlefront 2, and I assume the Battlefield games, if they have them, they are also really fun to play with bots because you've got this kind of you're the most important person on the battlefield feeling to them. Like, you look at the scoreboards at the end of these matches, and I've easily got the most kills, like by tens of kills, and I'm the one running around and taking the objectives and stuff. There's a little bit more to it than just mindlessly death matching. But yeah, anyone who's familiar with earlier episodes of A Weekly Waypoint will not be surprised to learn that I like playing matches against bots, because that's what I used to do on here all the time. Or I guess not all the time, but quite frequently with like the Unreal Tournament episodes and such. I think it's a real shame that modern games don't have either bot integration or as advanced bots to fight against. I've definitely played more modern shooters where I've loaded up a bot match and I've had to jump through hoops to make it work as a bot match, and the bots just are not fun to fight against because they are so incredibly stupid. People don't invest in bots like they used to, and it's a shame. I know the modern Battlefront 2 does have bots as well. We will do a bot match next week just to see how the bots are in that game, I suppose. But if I say the word bot match one more time, I might just go crazy, so I think that's everything I've got to say on the subject. It's just a fun zen, turn your brain off kind of a time. But with all of that aside, what video games have I been playing this week besides bot match games? Well, it's been a very slapdash little bit of everything kind of a week, but I think I've got a main game I would like to talk about today. This week saw the release of the Gex trilogy by Limited Run Games, and if you're not aware of what I'm talking about, it's the re-release of the Gex Gecko platforming games from the PS1 era. I said re-release then, I meant to say remaster. That kind of tells you everything you need to know. It's very much like, it's not Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy, it's not Spyro Reignited Trilogy. The graphics remain untouched, the gameplay remains mostly untouched, and in fact it is quite bare bones and has been receiving mixed reviews because of how bare bones it is. In fact, I was originally going to refund this game shortly after I picked it up, because when I picked it up, it did not have the ability to rebind inputs. It did not have the ability, I think it still doesn't have the ability to have volume control. You have to do that through your sound manager. And crucially, more crucially than I was expecting, it didn't have the PAL voice acting, because for some reason they went with a different voice actor based on the territory that the game was releasing in. While the American versions of both Gex Enter the Gecko and Gex Deep Cover Gecko feature Dana Gold as the voice of our lizardy friend, here in the UK, Gex Enter the Gecko, Gex was voiced by Leslie Phillips, and in Deep Cover Gecko, Gex was voiced by Danny John Jules. And I'm pretty sure our regional versions of Gex have varying voice lines as well. And I didn't think that was gonna matter to me, but he opened his mouth and I just went, oh no. This is all wrong, this isn't the Gex I know. Like, I didn't consider myself attached to these outdated pop culture references, which were outdated even when the game came out, that I mostly don't understand except for when we're doing the science fiction levels and he's making a bunch of Star Wars and Star Trek references. But as it turns out, nostalgia factor is a pretty big, important reason to replay the Gex games. And yeah, it bothered me, but funnily enough, the second I went to refund this game, and then I went back to the store page, I noticed an update was being pushed out for Gex, and I checked the updates, and like a few hours after Gex came out, they put out a major update with the regional voice acting toggle on it, saying that they had managed to get it in there, I guess at the last minute, and that it had been in the works for a while. And since then they have been making updates, at least to the PC version. You can now rebind your inputs, which is, you know, in the year of our Lord 2025, man, I'm glad we got that rare feature in our video game. I'm playing on controller, of course, but it's the kind of thing where it's like, come on, man, really? The volume control bothers me more, and that's still not in there. But yes, I've been playing Gex Enter the Gecko again, and it's been really interesting, because what I've discovered is that the deeper into the game I go, the more nostalgic I get for it, because I've replayed the game a few times over the years, and you know, each time I've stopped a little bit earlier in the process, and therefore the later levels are less fresh in my memory, if that makes sense. And you'll see this in the eventual video I put out when I finish the game, but I keep going, this is definitely as far as I played through the game as a kid, because I know I didn't finish the game as a kid. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, I'll get to a point where it's not nostalgic for me anymore, because I just won't recognize the levels. And then I unlock a new level, and I'm going, oh, yes! The prehistoric level! I forgot about this level! And it sends me straight back to when I was in single digits with like soundtracks and just general aesthetics I haven't seen or heard or thought about in over 20 years. And it is, I'm not gonna lie, it is nostalgia goggling the hell out of itself for me. I am having such a good time rediscovering the game, and I know I keep saying like, oh, nostalgia is important for this game, ha ha ha. It's like a C-tier platformer or whatever. I actually am just having fun playing the game. Like, yes, it's not the best 3D platformer out there, and it certainly hasn't aged well, but the new camera controls definitely help. And I'm just now getting to the point where levels are starting to feel like a challenge, and it's actually quite engaging. I'm having a great time with Gex. The only Gex game I've never played is the very first one, the 2D one, and I'm gonna save that for last. Like, yeah, my OCD ass brain did go, oh, I gotta play the first game before I play the second game, we gotta play these in order, but I actually told it to shut up for once, and I just started with the game I knew, which was probably instrumental in me having a good time. I have no idea how the 2D Gex holds up. It is worth mentioning, there's a CRT filter, which I think looks quite nice. You have the ability to rewind the emulation like you do on NSO games, for instance, if you fall off a ledge and you think it was bullshit. I personally am not going to be doing that, or at least I haven't made the decision so far to be doing that. The in-game saving functionality has been ripped out, and you just kind of have to do emulation saves, which is, you know, not a big deal, I guess, but it does mean you can just save in the middle of levels or whenever. So far, I have not abused that. But it does mean that if a game does ramp up in difficulty towards the end to the point where I won't get to see the full thing, I do have those tools available to me, I suppose. But yeah, there's Gex. Speaking of older games with newer releases with tools to help players enjoy them in a more modern setting, I already spoke last week about finishing Final Fantasy III. That's still just kind of in the back of my brain. I'm still kind of thinking about that game and the fun time I had with it, but I have also started Final Fantasy IV, and I've got past the point that I played up to last time I tried that game too. And I went back and I rewatched my playthrough of Final Fantasy I, or at least the highlights and clips I have on this channel, just to refresh my memory. And I was originally playing the PSP version of that game, and I remember when I saw the pixel remasters and I ended up picking them up and talking about them in difference to previous versions, I actually said I preferred how the PSP version looked more. I preferred the slightly more intricate pixel art and all that stuff. Going back and watching that video again now, I think my taste has changed. I think I do prefer the pixel remaster versions of the art, even if they are more basic. I just think they look more tightly designed. I don't know, there's something about the PSP version that looks... I don't even know how to describe it, just maybe slightly tacky. The pixel remasters just look higher quality, I think. But it did get me to thinking of like, oh man, you know, we always talk about HD 2D, we want all of our old games released in HD 2D, but putting that thought aside, I would take a Pokemon pixel remaster collection, you know? Just take Fire Red Leaf Green, Heart Gold Soul Silver, Ruby Sapphire Emerald, Diamond Pearl Platinum, and then the Black and White games, and just put them in a collection, dude. Give them Pokemon Home support and stuff, and just put them on modern consoles. There might be some like Gen 1, Gen 2 people who are going, hey, we put red, blue, yellow, gold, silver, crystal on there as well. Sure, do that, but if you have to choose, please choose the remakes. I've played the originals, it's hard to go back. That's my opinion anyway. But I know that's a fool's wish. If they ever do anything with those old games, they'll just put them on NSO with no changes. Like, just look at what they've done with like Wind Waker and stuff. I hate that we seem to be in this phase in gaming of having games which have had re-releases in the past and re-releasing them again without any of the benefits of the prior re-release or the extra content or whatever. I hate that so much, but Nintendo are definitely guilty of doing that. But yeah, just thinking about the Final Fantasy pixel remasters for some reason got me thinking about Pokemon and wanting those as pixel remasters as well. Obviously different company, but you know what I mean. But speaking of Final Fantasy, this week I picked up Harvestella, and you might be thinking, Christian, what the hell has Harvestella got to do with Final Fantasy? And to that I say, just look at it. It might not be an officially branded Final Fantasy game, but it is the most Final Fantasy ass farming game I've seen in my goddamn life. It's basically Rune Factory, but Final Fantasy coded. I haven't sunk all that much time into it yet. I'm going to spend more time playing it today, but the game was on sale, and I was... You know, it was one of those impulse things where you see like 5 seconds of gameplay of it and you go, oh, I need that game. and then you look into it a little bit more and you realize, oh yeah, this looks like a really good game. So yeah, I've picked that one up. I've always loved the idea of Rune Factory, combining more of a traditional RPG combat side to like a farming game, and I played some Rune Factory 4 on Xbox a few years ago and quite enjoyed my time with it, so I figured it was time to give Harvestella a shot. Also this week, I've been hankering for a Metroidvania, or to get into the genre of Metroidvanias in general. And I was eyeing up the Castlevania Dominus collection, but that left sale before I got paid, so instead, I picked up the double pack of Bloodstained Ritual of the Night and Blasphemous, because they were on 2 separate sales, which coincided with each other, which made their bundle really cheap. And I've played a little bit of both of these games on Game Pass before and want to, well, I say continue them, it'll be on a fresh save, but I want to, own them and have the time to properly sink my attention into them at my own pace. Also, with the new Bloodstained game being announced, I just really want to get into the original game because the new one looks awesome. Castlevania doesn't make Castlevania games anymore, so now the Bloodstained people make the Castlevania games, let's be real. I think ultimately my platforming mind might be taken up with Gex until I finish it, but they're definitely next up on the docket for sure, and this continues my trend of wanting to sink more time into indie games. But yeah, that reminds me, a little while ago I also went through and made a Steam collection of not all of my indie games, and I haven't made it a dynamic collection because that'll throw in a bunch of like bundle fodder and stuff that I don't really care about that I've acquired over the years. And kind of because of that problem as well, I decided to make this collection called Indies of Note, where I literally just went through my entire gaming library, and anytime I saw an indie game that made me go, oh yeah, like, oh, ooh, that one, or yeah, like any game I kind of thought was worthwhile, or like a game I wanted to play more of, or a game that I loved, that was an indie game, I pulled it into that folder, and it ended up being 208 games. There are 208 indie games, where there have been some games where I've gone, I didn't even know I owned this, or like, how have I never played that game? How have I owned that for years and never played it? And so that is a folder that I want to just peruse every now and again and pick one game out of and play. Maybe we could make it like a live stream series or something like that. And a lot of it is the quote-unquote like blockbuster indies, I guess, like the ones everyone knows of, like Stardew Valley and Hollow Knight and all that stuff. But then there's also games in there which I just really think are really solid and want to play more of, like Ball X, which is kind of a spiritual successor to that Ballance rolling puzzle platformer game. Speaking of Ballance, that just reminded me to drag and drop that into the other Steam collection I made this week, which is just called Back in the Day. Just older retro games on previous console releases and stuff like that. I love making Steam collections, I'm realizing. It's a really nice way to kind of like organize your digital library and take stock of what you already own and kind of what you might want to spend more attention on. I think this is kind of a continuation of my Game Pass recovery, of having spent years playing games through Game Pass and then just losing them to the ether of this game isn't on Game Pass anymore and going, oh. I now value digital quote-unquote ownership more than I used to, and I guess that also just comes with my Steam profile's age as well, because the longer you keep your Steam profile, the more games you're going to accrue, and unlike with some console generations, you can still play all of them. So yes, I suppose Steam continues to be my favourite little ecosystem. Also, while we're talking about indie games, I never actually mentioned it at the time, but around my birthday a couple weeks ago, a friend got me Crystal Project, which is a indie game I've had my eye on for a very long time. It's a very Final Fantasy inspired turn-based party JRPG, but it's also a Metroidvania in terms of the overworld and exploration. And if that interests you, go look up Crystal Project on Steam. I'm not playing it yet because I'm still trying to play these older Final Fantasy games and keep ahead of this YouTube channel who are also doing this same thing, but I am really tempted to just load it up and check it out, but I want to give it the proper time of day when I do. Now at this point you might be thinking, damn, if this guy is so invested in Steam, why doesn't he get a Steam Deck? And yeah, I won't lie, the thought has crossed my mind a few times before, but ultimately that's more an if I was richer thing, because I really don't need one. My current lifestyle does not demand portability for my Steam library, but I do like the idea, especially since I know it's not just your Steam library, like people play World of Warcraft on it and stuff. I assume you could get Final Fantasy XIV running on there, which, speaking of, I've also been playing World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV this week. In WoW, I've been doing a lot of time walking because of the time walking event and the XP buff that it gives you. And in 14, I've been checking out some of the content drops I've missed recently, such as Cosmic Exploration, which so far seems like a really good way to level your, like, Disciple of the Hand and Land skills. Jobs, I was doing so well. And also I did check out Occult Crescent, but I'm just not sure if those kind of field operations are for me. I find them quite frustrating. Or I guess not so much frustrating, but I feel like it's a bit of wasted potential in how much of a super grind it is if you're not doing group content. I feel like field operations could be the perfect venue for more solo content, but if you're doing it solo, you're kind of doing it wrong, which just to me makes me think, well then why don't I just do dungeons and stuff, you know? You know what, I think I found a new criticism of Final Fantasy XIV I hadn't landed on before. I think it could use more soloable overworld content in patches. That's kind of what I was expecting Occult Crescent to be, and I was a little disappointed when I found out I was wrong. It's weird how Final Fantasy XIV is extremely solo friendly when it comes to the MSQ and like the main game, but when it comes to any side content, it is, you pretty much has to be a group endeavor, which I am just realizing now. You may be wondering how my Star Wars hyperfixation has been going since the end of Andor. We are of course playing a Star Wars game right now, but I have not mentioned any others. Well, mostly it's been comics for me, actually. I was considering starting up the High Republic comics on Marvel Unlimited once again, but I actually ended up finding out that there were Knights of the Old Republic comics, and I got a little waylaid checking those out. I've never actually finished Knights of the Old Republic, but I have watched like a all cutscenes movie version of the game and the second game, and I have played a bunch of the Old Republic MMOs, so I am invested in that era. Even if it is most likely Legends material now, I still don't know if they've made a canonical ruling on that. But yeah, out of curiosity, I decided to check out this 2006 Knights of the Old Republic comic run, and actually, I read the first 24 issues, and it is surprisingly good, and has a surprisingly interesting and involved plotline. I will say though, I read issue 25, and it kind of feels like, not a hard left turn, but it feels like, and I haven't been checking like the writers and the artists each issue or anything, but it feels like a new writer's come on with a new vision for it, and there's like a new character who's been introduced, and it kind of feels like we're sidestepping some of the other characters and plot lines that we were talking about, so that did kind of disappoint me, and instead of going ahead and continuing reading it, I actually did go ahead and decide to go back to checking out what different Star Wars comics are available. And I landed on the 2017 Vader comic run, which I believe I have started reading before. It is familiar to me. I don't know how far through it I got, but it focuses on Darth Vader's earliest moments after the end of Revenge of the Sith, basically. And the way he's drawn and written in that series is so cool. It's just got such a good cool factor to it. I have previously read the 2015 run, which takes place directly after A New Hope of the Vader comics, and I might actually go back and reread those, because I did just recently watch A New Hope as well. I don't know if I've spoken about this on this channel, but after finishing Andor Season 2, I did then go and watch Rogue One, and then I did go and watch A New Hope, and surprise, surprise, A New Hope is a really good movie. I don't know if that opinion has ever been expressed. But also I enjoyed Rogue One more than I ever have before. Anyway, I'm a little bit all over the place, but yeah, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. I don't know if this fixation is going to last too much longer. Like, I'm definitely out of the post-series depression arc of Andor Season 2. Part of me does yearn to spin up Star Wars The Old Republic again while it's still alive, because by my understanding it may or may not be on life support. But I am already playing World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. I think I'm at capacity for MMOs. I was also tempted to give the Knights of the Old Republic another spin, but again, I'm just playing too many different games right now, and I know I would not commit myself to seeing it through. I really hope that they're continuing to try to remake Knights of the Old Republic, because I know that project was canned. I think it's a game with some of the deepest remake potential, because it's such a good idea for a game, and it's such a well realized world and such a nice little spin on Star Wars, but the gameplay has aged so much that it could really use a new lick of paint, man. And while we're at it, could we invest in an offline version of the Old Republic MMO before it dies? Because I really do not have much faith in the future of that game, and I really want to see it all. Next time I play it, I'll have the optional subscription. I promise I'll support it, but man. Now, we've still got a few minutes of footage left in this weekly waypoint, so shall we talk about upcoming stuff? We do that sometimes. Now, despite my continual falling out of love with Game Pass, I do still find myself being subscribed to it, mostly because it's part of my phone contract. It's kind of like just an automatic thing more than anything. And I've seen that they're bringing the Warcraft games to Game Pass, which is quite exciting as someone who spent thousands of hours in World of Warcraft and was considering buying the remastered package of 1, 2, and 3. I've never played those games because I'm just not an RTS guy as much as I keep trying to be, but I'm absolutely going to try these when they drop, because the lore, man, the lore. I don't know if I'll get far through 1 or 2, but I do want to give 3 a real proper try. I'll try all of them in order, of course. Oh, I guess we could also talk about the 11.2 reveal for World of Warcraft: The War Within. As someone who still hasn't finished the 11.1 story, I'm mildly excited. It's weird, because they've definitely become a game where obviously you still have the major story content patches with a new zone and raid and all that main stuff, but they also have so many little event patches like the remix stuff and the Turbulent Timeways stuff, and I feel like that's the stuff I end up looking forward to more nowadays. Like 11.2 takes us to Koresh, the homeworld of the Imperial, I nearly said Imperials, and it looks good, but it also does just kind of look like a small slab of land out there in space with a couple of eco-domes smacked on top. And I'm always excited when we go to space in WoW, and it's been a while since we have, but yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know all that much about the gameplay of the patch yet, I suppose, so I guess we'll see. But I think I'm still more excited for Legion Remix and for player housing, of course. It's funny, now that I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV after seeing player housing in WoW, or like previews of it, I'm kind of going, do I care about player housing in 14? No, but I'm never going to play that game consistently enough to keep my rent up or whatever the fucking game mechanic is there. I really hope with the advent of WoW housing that the 14 developers will take a second look at their housing system and go, oh, okay, we could be on parity with World of Warcraft by just removing the pain points of, having to have an active subscription to keep your house and all that shit, because that's the main reason I've never got invested in housing in that game. It just punishes a certain type of player attention, which is funny considering the devs encourage people to take breaks from the game. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this episode of the Weekly Waypoint. I will catch you in whatever I make next.